An Unexpected Affair.
Presented by Stillafrog.
"You're married?" I said, stunned. "Yes, I'm married," he reiterated, utterly unruffled. "I never said I wasn't." "You never said... Are you kidding me? It's sort of implied when you go on, like, a dating site," I countered in complete disbelief. "Not necessarily. Plenty of people in bad marriages look online for companionship," he calmly explained. What the hell was that supposed to mean? I thought this was dating. I thought this was the beginning of something that could blossom into a real relationship. You know, where flirtatious dinners and great sex eventually turn into sleeping together every night, unless you announce plans to the contrary. But to call it companionship, like some sort of consolation prize for a bad marriage, what did that even mean? Why bother with a Match.com when you could just scroll to the Craigslist back pages? I'm pretty certain they had a category for that. This evening had started out as our official third date. And as the term generally implies, you know. So after a bottle of Chianti at Mario's and public display of foreplay so feverishly hot it would have made Dr. Ruth blush, we went back to my place and proceeded to third date it up. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. What can I say? I always like to respect the unwritten laws of symmetry whenever possible. And he, well, again, what can I say? A sexual savant with just the right amount of 5 o'clock shadow and a rose-shaped tattoo inked upon a slightly bulging bicep that read, "Mama's Boy." Thank you, Mama. But then as we lay side by side, the sheets lassoing our naked and sweaty body parts, he drops this bombshell, this inconceivably mortifying marriage bombshell. I collected the comforter from my floor and cocooned myself in the thing. "Look," he continued matter-of-factly, "it doesn't change how I feel about you." "Well, it most definitely changes how I feel about you. Why a dating site? Go on Ashley Madison. That's specifically for married people." I bit back hard. The problem, however, was that he'd been perfect. We laughed at the same things. I could be his captive audience for hours without going to that mind-wandering place in which you feign the listening part while concocting next week's grocery list. Our second date, no lie, had lasted 8 hours, maybe more. I guess I just really liked him. That was the tragic truth of it. "We don't have a real marriage, not any longer," he explained. "You sleep in separate beds, you stay for the sake of the children, you never really loved her, you plan on leaving her early soon, right?" Fired off all those lines that Cosmo regularly trotted out cautionary articles about, even as my head was telling my heart, "Don't believe any of that stuff, barricade those emotions, put on that armor." Who was I kidding? I had no armor at all. I eventually got back into the bed, and thus began the affair I never expected. The thought of being judged, the anguish of it all, the disapproving glances from passers-by on the street, which were only really disapproving in my mind, none of it had any effect. I met him when he wanted, where he wanted, under his terms, which were third shift hours only, ordering in, no questions, no ultimatums, no expectations of any kind, and I acquiesced on everything. Why? I look back on those months I spent with him, hiding for him, and I ask, why? But then again, I didn't need to ask. When I was only 28 years old, my father had what would be his 4th and final heart attack. For 3 days, he lingered unconscious in the ICU. There'd always been a special connection between my dad and me. I was his little girl, after all. As soon as I entered his room one evening, the steady rhythm on the monitor went absolutely berserk. My obviously non-medical assessment. A nurse rushed in and escorted me out, warning me not to go back in. He knew I was there, somehow. His heart knew it. And this was sort of like that. Regardless of any moments of clarity I experienced, those involuntary palpitations of the heart took over whenever he was near me. He said all the right things, though they were tinged with a "but I'm married" subtext. He could make me feel so loved with just one look, and even though deep down I knew that look was spoken for, it didn't matter. All that mattered was the intensity. That's not to say we didn't have our rough patches. The thing about trying to build a pseudo-relationship on someone else's failed marriage is the tension. Things tend to get heated rather quickly. You're always on the lookout for the signs. The words that actually mean something other than what they seem to mean. Our worst fight came after we dared journey beyond the confines of my condo for a simple pizza. Who'd have thought some mushrooms and a little mozzarella could bring about the events that they did? We were sitting, waiting for our order at one of the wobbly Formica restaurant tables. "Damn," he suddenly whispered. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Larry Culbertson, 10 o'clock. I was confused as the name meant nothing to me. That's the other thing about these pseudo-relationships. When it comes to the other person's life, there are so many faceless names, too many missing puzzle pieces. You know the jigsaw will never look like the picture on the box. Trying to discreetly crane my neck around, I saw only a rumply suited man appearing a bit worse for wear. "He works for me." "Just great," he grunted. "We gotta get out of here." Too late. "Larry," he fake smiled. "Picking up dinner for the fam?" "Yeah, wife's not feeling too well." "Where's Kate?" the guy questioned, looking squarely at me. "Home with the kids. I'm doing the same. Just bumped into someone I graduated with," he hastily mumbled. "Oh, looks like my number's up. Gotta go. Kate's waiting. Great seeing you again," he said to me as he stood, and then grabbing his pizza, he practically ran out the door, leaving me to just sit there, smiling stupidly at a poor, befuddled Larry. Now, one would expect him to at least be waiting in the car in which we'd arrived, together. Nope, no sign whatsoever of his gray SUV. Son of a bitch. I tried calling, right to voicemail. I texted, nothing. I walked the 2.5 miles home, a broken heel my battle scar. What is it they say? Love is like war, easy to begin but very hard to stop. This was certainly starting to feel at times more like war than love. I wanted to stop. I honestly did. I just couldn't. And then, bedraggled, mosquito-bitten, pizzaless, and pissed off, I arrived home to find the enemy. No, not him. Her. She was standing in my doorway, her longer-than-life legs, dramatically ringleted blonde hair, and elegant trench coat cinched around her perfect waist. I knew who she was before she spoke. In some ways, I'd always known she'd be here, one day, though maybe not in quite this out-of-the-blue fashion. "I'm Kate," she needlessly informed. "Do you want to come in?" was what I said. What I thought was, why not? I was just abandoned at a third-rate pizza parlor by my married lover who ran like a scared little bitch as soon as he was spotted by the couldn't-be-less terrifying Larry. "You know who I am," she began as she sat down, her words tinged with a hint of bitterness, the reverberations of a marriage, or non-marriage, as it were, that had led her to this showdown with the other woman. My stomach churned as the residual rage from earlier met the utter lifetime moviness of it all. "Yes, I do," I managed to reply, but I had no idea what else to say. I wasn't sure I was supposed to say anything, so I just let her continue. "I came to tell you that I'm out." There was a glassy look in her eyes that seemed both lost and also found. "You aren't the first or the second," she said, not unkindly. "There have been a few. I initially told myself that I was staying for the kids' sake because I wanted them to know that when I took that vow, I meant what I said," she continued. "But something like this happens and you begin to doubt everything, including your own judgment. Sometimes I wonder if I'm just showing my kids, my daughter especially, that marriage is about a woman tolerating the intolerable from a man. I don't know. What I do know is I'm finished." And she began to cry. It was wrenchingly sad, and I felt for her deeply. But in a sense, it was exactly what I needed to see, because it brought me face to face with the reality of my own situation. I'd sacrificed who I was in order to be who he wanted, and I wasn't willing to do that anymore. When he knocked at my door a little while later, I again expected it. What can I say? I'm a damn psychic. Trust me, though, it's not hard to predict the predictable. "I'm sorry," he murmured, head penitently bowed. "I don't want to lose you. I never meant to." I opened the door wider then, giving him a good long look into my living room. He was dumbstruck when he saw Kate sitting there, cup of coffee in hand. "Kate?" he stammered. She stood. Ah, the dysfunctional trio we must have made. "Your suitcase is packed. My lawyer will be in touch in the morning." Then, turning to me, she said, "Thank you," and she left. He looked at me. I shook my head no, and I closed the door.
Ribbit.
Want to hear more about fall-down laughing first date disasters, hilarious online dating nightmares, and even that rare, magical meeting that turns into a romance for the ages? Download our free app, A New True Story Every Day, the ever-entertaining comedy of the attraction between men and women.